I've never had a problem. I've never had any problem, and you're not going to give me any
time we got here 6:58.
But you get into this, you know, you just get into it. And
I know, it's maybe national change. Well, what's interesting is, I got that same connect also with financial.
All right. I have some company in the house chatting in the other room. I'm not sure how much of the background noise y'all can hear. I'm trying to set my background noise settings. So hopefully that won't be noticeable. Okay, that we are at 6:59. Let's give it another few minutes here until about 7:02, and then we'll get rolling, talking about pretty much what our agenda is: federal policy, state level activity, which is nothing right now, and chapter business. We'll get on those in just a few minutes. Let me just open up my agenda so I have that handy.
well, yeah.
Oh, I forgot. I usually do a couple quick reminders to a couple of folks. Let me get those out here. Just about there, almost at 7:02. We'll get rolling in a minute here, folks. All right, there we go. Excuse me 1 second. 7:02, good enough for me. As a courtesy for the folks that joined us early, I don't want to make you wait for folks that join us late. So we're going to get rolling here. My name is Scott Weldon. This is the South Carolina NORML monthly membership public meeting. All of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. Welcome to everybody who's here with us on the on the Zoom meeting. Welcome to anybody who may be watching this as a live stream on our YouTube channel. And also welcome to anybody who might be watching this as a recording on YouTube. Mentioning YouTube, I always like to point out that we are not monitoring the YouTube feed. So if you do happen to have questions, comments, or concerns, you can leave them down below in the comments section. And when YouTube is done rendering our video in a couple of days, we will visit that and try and address your questions, comments, and concerns. So again, if you're watching on YouTube, we're not monitoring the comment section. So just leave your comments and we'll check them in a few days and try and respond. Excuse me. Let me have a couple other people popping in. I don't know if folks can see the agenda that just came in, so I'm going to share it again. And again, real quick, I'll mention that this is our monthly public meeting of the South Carolina chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, lovingly known as NORML. Again, my name's Scott Weldon. I am the Executive Director here at South Carolina NORML, and welcome everybody who's joining us. Let's go ahead and start talking a little bit about what's going on with marijuana and national legislative news. As always, I will direct folks almost any time if they ask me what's going on with normal legislative news to a couple of different spots. One would be National's website, NORML.org. And going to the NORML.org site, you can either scroll down through their blog, see what's going on. A couple things national level, a couple things, they'll go different state by state, what's going on in different states. And the other one is toward the top of the page. I think it's the second tab from the left. They have their Take Action button. And if you click on their Take Action button, the top section of the Take Action page has a few, 5 different highlighted federal things going on at the moment. A map below that on finding out what's going on in your state. And again, further down as you scroll through, there are some other federal priorities listed, I want to say about halfway down that page. I'm going to share that page address with y'all real quick. That's normal.org/act. And that's where I'm going to kind of start a little bit tonight, because those are some of the subjects that are on the top of my mind. We do have in here, top on their list, appropriations. Basically, their headline on that page, don't use tax dollars to shut down legalization. And this is what I've always called the Blumenauer-McClintock amendment. It is now, over the years, been a couple of co-sponsors added, is now the Blumenauer-McClintock-Norton-Lee Amendment. And basically what this does is it restricts the Department of Justice from interfering in adult use states and enforcing federal criminalization laws in states that have already found cannabis to be legal for adult recreational use. That is the Blumenauer-McClintock-Norton-Lee Amendment. And that has not been voted on yet, as far as I understand. So if you do follow the link on that, scroll down, there is a Write Your Legislator action alert action link there to get them to move on voting for this, because it has not. It's been renewed every year since it was introduced. 2014, but it has not been renewed at this point yet. So we anticipate doing so. I think my understanding is it's going to be getting its own hearing, its own vote. But that is appropriations. Next, and what's kind of bigger in the news at the moment, because it's probably the last piece of legislation I think that physically moved forward. That is the House version of the MORE Act. The MORE Act is the bill to deschedule marijuana at a federal level to remove it completely from the Controlled Substances Act. Also on the MORE Act, it includes some, well, it's even in the name, it's reinvestment and expungement, the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. So there are facilitating expungement at low-level federal marijuana convictions and incentivizing state and local governments to take similar actions. As many of you may know, federal marijuana convictions are probably 5% of convictions. So that's not a lot of numbers there. It's really the important side of these bills are the incentivizing the states and the local governments to move forward in expungement at usually it's county level. Also, these are they do have some equity adjusters, I guess you would call them, built in, creating pathways for ownership opportunities in emerging regulated industry, allowing veterans for the first time to obtain medical cannabis recommendations from the VA, removing the threat of deportation for immigrants accused of minor marijuana infractions, providing critical reinvestment grant opportunities for communities that have suffered disproportionate rates of marijuana-related enforcement actions, and protecting the basic and respecting basic rights and civil liberties of cannabis consumers under federal law. Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot in there. There is a, I don't have the information from me. There is a Republican sponsored, now this one's a bipartisan, I believe, bill. There is another deschedule bill. I want to say it's in the House as well. I don't remember offhand. But all it looked to do is deschedule. It did not have any other equity adjusters in it. Basically, the Senate version, what is now COA, the Cannabis Opportunity Administration Act, Cannabis Act, Administration and Opportunity Act, was the old MORE Act in the Senate. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the House version, the MORE Act, actually moved out of the House Judiciary Committee. That was, I want to say, about 2 weeks ago. I'm not seeing that in this notation here. Update, September 29th. So it was more about 3 weeks ago. So it's scheduled for House Judiciary Committee markup on the 29th. It did get voted out of that committee that day. So that was about 3 weeks ago. We're anticipating a House vote. We're pushing for a House vote. So again, if you go to, let me give you the link for this one in the chat. Contact your House representatives. For me, that is, who do I have here? Nancy Mace. Asking them to support and move forward and vote for the MORE Act, especially when it hits the floor for a floor vote. And that's kind of what's going on with that. Not a whole lot more going on with the MORE Act. The Senate proposal, as I just briefly mentioned, I'll give you the link for that one as well. That was announced, I want to say back in July 14th, now that I look at it, as a legislative draft. Now, before this, I had never really understood. I'm still learning this process a lot. But a legislative draft is not proposed legislation. It was a draft. And what they did is they released this draft. Draft discussion bill is actually what it's called in here, outlining their proposal and asking for input. And that input comment period ended the 1st of September. So that was about a month and a half ago, a little more than a month and a half ago. Once that, what's happening now with it in the meantime, I mean, mind you, there's other things going on federally. There's this reinvestment bill and all kinds of other stuff going on that are sort of taking up the time of a Congress that they could be talking about marijuana, but that's not their priority. But anyway, what's happened now with this is they've gotten those comments from all sorts of different sources. They've received them from NORML, they've received them from opponents and proponents. So they kind of received from both sides. I've read some of it was some of it was great, commentary and changes in it, and some not so much. But anyway, what those legislators are now doing is starting to discuss this. We know that our political director at national level, Justin Streckel, has been trying to schedule meetings with different legislators to discuss NORML's suggestions, NORML's recommendations on rewrites for the legislation. Our anticipation is sometime in early 2022, the Senate version, DCOA, will be actually officially introduced as legislation early next year. Early January, early February, or early later than that, I couldn't tell you, but early next year. So it's going to take a few months. It's going to take some time for them to rewrite what was originally a draft and take all of these comments and things into consideration. The biggest one that we've heard a lot about is people complaining about the tax rates that are listed in there. I do like to point that out because so many people have brought it up to me, and it lists a tax rate of up to over a 5-year period, going from 5% to 25% on the manufacturers, I believe it's on the growing level. On the manufacturer, I'm not exactly sure where. Keep in mind that that 25% is only for the 20 million and first dollar and up. So that first $20 million is at half of whatever that going rate is. If it's 5% the first year, the going rate for the first 20 million is only 2.5%. That fifth year, year 5, when it's 25% for that 20 million and first dollar and up, the below that amount is 12.5%. It's done hopefully to encourage more small growers, craft growers, manufacturing, and that's much of what I kind of envision when people talk about the future of the marijuana market in the United States is very much how craft brewers and craft brewing is taken off, and is craft growers and craft producers of cannabis being kind of more the norm, and not all big business, large corporations taking over the businesses. At least that's the hope, that it's not all taken over by huge corporations. Before I ramble anymore, is there any questions on the, I'm going to look at this comment down here real quick. Any questions on the MORE Act or on the COA, the Senate version of the MORE Act? Any questions or comments on those, where they differ, where they collide, any of that stuff? Okay. You see this comment here? I have a question here from Josh asking about, he saw something, he believes that about Attorney General Garland could deschedule or reschedule tomorrow. Anything on that? And I had not heard anything on that. I'm gonna, no, I hate my computer. Let me do a real quick search on that, just out of curiosity. On a real quick Google search, the first thing I'm seeing is the U.S. senators are asking Attorney General Garland to reschedule cannabis. It's a YouTube video. Shane joining us here real quick. So to answer your question on that, Josh, no, I haven't heard anything about it. You've kind of piqued my curiosity. Let me do one other quick search filter here. No, okay, I'm gonna kind of make that. Yeah, you got me. I'm gonna have to look into that when our calls over, because I didn't think the Attorney General had the power to change an act of Congress. So yeah, let me look into that, and hopefully we have something to talk about the next time we talk about federal policy. Or if you find out any more, yeah, definitely send me a link. I appreciate that. All right, let me get back to this stuff jumping up in front of me. I'm going to leave this window open just so I remember to look at this later. Okay. I'm going to touch on this one a little bit, not always the most romantic one to talk about, but it's actually important legislation. The Safe Banking Act was recently attached to the, let's see if I can find it, the NDAA, which is basically a national defense funding bill. And basically it's must pass type legislation, and it successfully has been attached and now faces consideration by the U.S. Senate. So Safe Banking Act moving forward. I know I've heard some more people more knowledgeable than I that they'd really like to see descheduling happen before the Safe Banking Act, but it doesn't always matter exactly how it falls into play. But that's moving forward. And one thing, again, important, the Safe Banking Act doesn't make any difference for us right now here in South Carolina. That is for states that have already legalized for either medical and or recreational use, and giving those dispensaries, manufacturers, growers, processors, the ability to use the banking system, heck, if nothing else, to pay their taxes. It's my understanding that they need to hire armored cars just to take their taxes to the government in cash, because of federal law doesn't, can't use the banks. Safe Banking Act, fun stuff. I'm going to scroll. What did I hit? Something I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Always wonder if this is the one I was thinking about the other day. VA1, if it's my understanding, there is a veterans bill moving forward. Where's my note on that? I had a note about that and I don't see it. And I don't see Michael on the call. Michael would probably be able to answer that VA one on me. Federal legislation pending to expand veterans' access to medical marijuana. Again, it's a bipartisan bill. the Veterans Medical Marijuana Safe Harbor Act. I'm not sure if that's the one I'm thinking about or not, but I'm going to backtrack from that a little bit. All right, another one, and this is probably something I know it got a lot of activity on one of the posts when I posted on our Facebook page. A new NORML report highlights concerns regarding sale of unregulated Delta-8 THC and similar products. Let me go ahead and share this with you. Jessica Angeline responded with possibly S1467. That is the VA Medical Cannabis Research Act of 2021. I don't have my notes, and I'd have to go back and actually watch the last Marijuana Monday from Justin to find it, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly which, but there's other legislation out there for vets. Let me see if we have actions taken on S 1567. Actions taken. All I'm seeing for that is introduced April 29th at this point. All actions except amendments. What else do I have here? Oh, and then on June 23rd, that one had a hearing on the Committee for Veterans Affairs. So I don't think that's the new one I'm thinking about. I think you're right. I think it might be the Safe Harbor Act, the S8, which was the other one I was kind of just briefly looking at. Let me go find that again on my tabs. Senate Bill 1183, House Bill HR 2588, bipartisan legislation to expand the and facilitate medical cannabis access. Let me just double check to see if I can see some new action on those. Action 6. July 14th, referred to the subcommittee on health in the House. No actions in the Senate after introduction. So I'm thinking it might be the House version that's getting ready to possibly see a vote in that subcommittee on health. Yeah, I wish I had my note in front of me, but underneath my keyboard. HR 2916. Let me go find it real quick. Okay, that's the Medical Research Act. That was, I think, the first one you mentioned to me, but the House version of it. There we go. Actions taken. Yeah, that was one referred to the subcommittee on health. So I think that's coming up and getting some action. Sorry for the randomness on that, folks. I'm glad I found this note. So the A1 appropriation, safe banking. Those are the main things I wanted to talk about as far as federal legislation. The other thing I did want to hit on, because I saw it on the blog, it is kind of federal, I guess, related. Let me close up some of these other tabs on my window here. Let me share this one with you, this link. This was a new NORML report and highlights concerns regarding sale of unregulated Delta-8 THC and similar products. I am not real familiar with Delta-8 versus, Delta-O or versus Delta-10 versus. But what I'm understanding more from what I've read of some of this, Delta-8 THC products sold over the counter at gas stations and convenience stores are unregulated and may contain impurities that make them unsafe for consumption, according to a white paper published today by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Now, this is, do I have it in front of me? Paul Armentano. The OGs won't touch with a 10-foot pole. The report authored by California NORML, okay, California NORML's coordinator, Dr. Dale Geringer, explains that Delta-8 THC typically occurs only in minute quantities in cannabis. By contrast, unregulated Delta-8 THC products sold over the counter are produced artificially by a chemical conversion process known as isomerization. There exists no quote unquote best practices or guidelines overseeing this process, and human safety data on these products are lacking at this time. Under current federal law, agencies like the DEA define these products as illegal. As a result, NORML does not advise consumers to obtain these products from the unregulated market, and it believes that scientific investigations assessing the safety of these products should be prioritized. I'm seeing some comments go, so let me see what I can see here real quick. Okay, Jessica saying she stopped offering D8. Nobody's trusting it in the upstate or up north. So I'm assuming the upstate. I've never tried it. I've been sort of curious and I've looked into it a little bit, and this was actually the most information. Oh, New England. Okay, excellent. Thank you for joining us. This I thought was pretty interesting, and there's some other reports that are attached to it. Are they in this report? I'm going to pull them out of my email from the other day. National. On the page. Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of going back and forth between a number of the different chapter folks on the report about Delta-8. So let me go and find this one from National here. This is a link to a site called 538.com. They had a major story on these products, Delta-8, as well as those containing other chemically produced novel cannabinoids. Their report similarly highlight the lack of regulatory oversight, best practices, and consistent testing of these products, some of which contain a variety of quote unquote unidentifiable compounds, in addition to heavy metals. Let me go ahead and just give you that whole link here. I mean, what I'm sort of hearing is conversion. I don't want to quite call it, synthetic THC like spice and K2, but I'm getting that inky kind of feeling of it. That might be kind of not too far off the mark. Again, it's not my area of expertise. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a processor. And so I hope that link came through. It looked a little funny the way it's sitting there. But anyway, I would definitely say, okay, Shane's telling me yes, similar to Spicer, K2 kind of stuff. Yeah, some of the reports I've heard of people and they're saying, oh, this is supposed to be legal and come from hemp, but now I'm getting so high on this stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't like the sound of it. So like I said, I have no experience with it. I could be completely off base. If I am, please, feel free to correct me. But there's some information from shared by our Deputy Director, Paul Armentano. He shared that particular article. I want to real quick double check a couple of these others. There are a few others. I mean, if you really want these links, reach out to me and I can share some other links. There's some reports of adverse reactions following the administration of certain largely unregulated products purporting to possess high quantities of chemically produced delta 8 THC. And they've been reported in several states. So they've got, I see one here from Utah. Where's this one? Virginia. Another one from Utah. I do want to real quick check on some of these. D8 flower. Yeah. I mean, that is one of the reasons I push for full legalization is the regulation and safe access to quality tested product. I don't want some stuff sprayed on. I've read something not too long ago about, I believe, in a foreign country, could be Colombia, Mexico. I don't know, that they're spraying something on the marijuana to make it like addictive, 10 times more addictive or 100 times more addictive than heroin or whatever the headline was that I read. And again, when I read things like that, it's like, oh no, that's all the more reason you need to legalize it, because you need to catch people doing that and stop them from doing that, so that the product that I purchase is what I expected to be, is nice, safe, hopefully organically grown, no chemicals, no molds, no adulterants in my cannabis. Okay, Shane's telling me you've seen it done. Yeah, that they adding an acid. I don't know if that's that isomerization that this report was talking about. Jessica and Shane, again, a lot more to that, but simply put, okay. Yeah, so whatever this isomerization process, it's synthesizing this THC compound. Doesn't sound like something I'm necessarily interested in, but it is a hot topic at the moment. As a matter of fact, in some of our internal communications with national and the chapters, there are some of our chapter leaders that are active in marketing these products, and they weren't happy with National's position. And National's like, look, if we're not really concerned about helping out businesses as much as we're worried about protecting consumers. So, if you've got a problem with this, then maybe this isn't quite the right place to be. You're somewhere along that line. But yeah, we are an organization that are fighting for the consumers' rights, not necessarily big business and such like that. But thought I would share that link with you. Did I share that? Yeah, I did share that link on that. And I'm also going to share this other, if I forgot to earlier, to the NORML page, to their blog post on it. I don't know why I just posted the number 10, but that obviously wasn't the link I'm looking for. No better. Let me real quick run down that list one more time, see if there's anything else I wanted to touch base with. Oh, of course, right below the one. House Veterans Affairs Committee considers marijuana research bill. That was the HR 2916. That was from a blog post just October 13th. So that might be House Veterans Affairs Committee consider marijuana research bill. And they will conduct a legislative hearing Wednesday, October 13th, which will include consideration. I haven't heard results of that. I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit closer. That was 6 days ago, almost a week. Otherwise, that's kind of all I really want to cover on federal level legislation and what's going on at the federal level right now. Any questions on any of it? The D8, the MORE Act and COA, comments, thoughts? State level. And really state level isn't state level right now, it's municipal level. We have some municipal elections coming up on November 2nd, quite a few of them. Some of you may or may not know, but I've been started to reach out to some of the candidates about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Looking for any candidates that, if they're elected, would be interested in sponsoring, co-sponsoring, and or supporting decriminalization at the municipal level. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to expect, what I was expecting when I was emailing out to these. I kind of did a group email to all candidates in a particular municipality. I have a list of about 20 of the top 10, top 20, 10, the top 20 largest cities in South Carolina. So that's kind of where I focused my emails to those groups. And I got a few respondents, a few candidates that said, yeah, let's do this. We'll be happy to join your conversation next Wednesday, which is tomorrow night, actually. I expect to have 2 different candidates on. I believe one, neither of them for where I'm at here in Charleston. Let me kind of scroll down who's email list. There we go. I believe somebody from Mount Pleasant, let me go look at this, is interested in chatting, hasn't committed to being on the program. And I'm trying to split the program up into tomorrow night and next Wednesday, the 27th. I do have another from, should look in the sent, because I sent them each a little bit of update. Somebody from Edisto, and somebody from Spartanburg, and somebody from Bluffton. I believe 2 of them are going to be on tomorrow. One's looking at next week. So we should have a couple of candidates. I mean, now I wrote to a lot, and if we get 2, that's not a whole lot, but it's more than I actually kind of anticipated. I thought they'd all ignore me completely. So that's a good sign. And some of the others that are sort of on the fence about coming on and talking to us are I guess I kind of caught them a little bit off guard, and they are unsure what exactly I'm asking them about. Sponsoring a decrim ordinance in my municipality, what's that all about? What are you thinking? And as I mentioned earlier, or if I didn't, I was talking to somebody else earlier. We are focusing on trying to do a no fine, no time decrim in organizations in municipally different towns and cities across South Carolina. Once you start attaching a fine to it, whether it's $25 or whatever, all of a sudden that process gets you into the system. I've seen this happen a lot in towns in Pennsylvania, where I'm originally from. They're doing decrims in different municipalities, towns, cities across the state with a fine involved. And once again, if there's a fine involved, just the process of paying that fine gets you involved in the system. Many of the communities, and I think 20 out of the 22 or 21 out of 22 that have decrimmed in Ohio, have done a no fine, no time decriminalization. And basically, it was explained to me by the folks that are working that process in Ohio. They were looking for a no fine, no time decrim, because if they take the money generation process for the municipality out of the equation, they tend to just, the law enforcement officer will tend to just confiscate your marijuana and shoo you along your way and say something like, don't let me catch you with weed around here again, or something like that. And you don't get into the system. And that's our goal for the most part, is to keep people out of the criminal justice system. It's a harm reduction strategy. And so I have had some suggestions from, well, I won't mention names, but another advocacy group who was giving me some advice or discussion on it, and referring also to another third-party advocacy group down in Louisiana. One was California, one was Louisiana. And I believe Louisiana, when they did their kind of decrim, they did put in some sort of like community service for a minor that was caught with cannabis. So, under 18, you do, 5 hours community service, and they confiscate your weed, that kind of thing. So that might be an option in some of these municipal ordinances that we would be probably willing to consider as relatively low harm penalty. But anyway, keep an eye on that in the next couple of Wednesdays, tomorrow night starting at 7, and again the following Wednesday, the 27th, starting at 7, on our South Carolina Cannabis Conversation. We hope to be talking to some candidates for municipal office and see where we go with that. As many of you have been on with the calls with me before, you may know that I have often talked about trying to do our voter-initiated ballot process using the, let's see if I can show it here, a little local initiative guide. But that requires us getting the signatures of about 15% of the voters in each and every municipality, or one municipality at a time, on our petitions. And that is a daunting task. And COVID really kind of put dampers on petition signature collecting. And I'm really hoping that going through our city and town councils and getting ordinances they can give, which can only affect the penalty phase, that cannot affect the actual state law. They can't change state law, but they can affect the penalty phase of state law at that level. It may be a better option, and it seems like we have some candidates, at least if not sitting legislators, that may be interested in helping us with that process. Any questions on the ballot initiative process or on the ordinance process in South Carolina? Let me look down my agenda here real quick. Some of this is an old form. All right, I think the last thing I want to talk is kind of chapter business. And we're going to kind of bump right to activities and events. As many of you know, for 6 months or so, we've been trying to plan the South Carolina Cannabis Convocation, a conference and trade show up in Columbia, planned for January 15th, the first Saturday after the start of the South Carolina's second half of this legislative period. And I couldn't tell you which one it is, the 116th, something like that, might be more. But anyway, session reconvenes on January 11th. We were hoping to do this conference on the 15th. Unfortunately, we've had to cancel it. We didn't seem to have the participation from other nonprofits that we were hoping to get. And we also, between the not having that participation and the cost of the venue, we decided to let's not spend the money. And let's see if we can find something else to do to raise awareness. So unfortunately and apologetically, I feel like I've really failed on this one. We have had to cancel the cannabis conference for January 15th, I'm going to say. Let me pull my calendar up. What I'm hoping to do, and I'm kind of trying to switch gears now, is change it to a lobby day and rally on the Capitol steps with a press conference possibly, and I haven't nailed the date down, but real close to that first date. I'm thinking Friday the 14th. It will be a weekday. We want it to be a weekday when legislators are there. That was also one of my concerns of having a Saturday event. Legislators often will go home for the weekend and then maybe stay in the Capitol during the week. Some of them stay all session, but not all of them. So that's kind of what I'm in the process now. I am going to be reaching out to one of the other cannabis, medical cannabis organizations here that has done a couple of conferences or rallies on the steps and see if they can give us a couple of pointers and advice. I'm seeing some nice comments here about being a good alternative. I appreciate that. I think it will be a good alternative. And again, what we'll start doing is getting people who are interested, starting scheduling some meetings with their legislators in the Capitol, trying to fill up our scheduled day so that what we'll do is have the conference first thing in the morning, the rally kind of first thing in the morning on the Capitol steps, hopefully get a little bit of a news coverage. And then after our rally on the on the Capitol steps, get into the building and start hammering at the schedule and meeting with legislators and sharing with them our opinions on marijuana legislation and where it should go here in South Carolina. So definitely keep an eye on our website and our social media on that for over the next couple of weeks as I try and hammer it out. And if you have any thoughts on how to run a rally on the Capitol steps and want to help, you're welcome to kind of reach out to me. And actually talking about that, one of the things we have been looking for, and I reiterate it from time to time on these meetings, we are definitely looking for some folks to help out the organization. One I'm always looking for is an event coordinator, somebody who wants to help us organize events. Secondly, is going to be a volunteer coordinator. We get a lot of people going, hey, I'd like to help. And I tend to send them over to our volunteer form and say, hey, fill in this form. And then they fill in some form, give us some information, and I look at it and go, what do I do now? I wish I had a volunteer coordinator to help with that. So I'll put that out there for folks that might be interested. I see Jessica has mentioned we're definitely interested in being involved with that. Shoot me a message either through our email, which is normalsouthcarolina@gmail.com, or visit our website, scnormal.org, and go to the contact pages and shoot me a message through the contact page there. Not really always a big commitment because we don't have a real good volunteer and or event scheduling program in place. It might be a little sluggish getting it rolling, but definitely looking for any help that we can use. I appreciate any input you have for me on that. Let me just look through this last little thing. I used to have these delusions of running some committees, having a communications and PR committee, an outreach and education committee, and a event committee, membership committee, sponsorship committee. Those are still kind of down the line in wishes, but as my agenda sort of lists committee reports, we do not have any reports because we don't have any official committees at this point. And that's about it. Oh, last things last, I see upcoming events announcement thing, and I'm looking at 2018, but it reminds me, we actually have scheduled a live event. We are going to show up at Blue Jam. That is the South Carolina Democratic Party's kind of kickoff to the election cycle coming up. We know Joe Cunningham's going to be there. We know Mia McLeod's going to be there. Those are the only two names that I've heard announced so far. We've reserved a booth space there, so we're going to set up our booth. We're going to be handing out, postcards to folks to mail to their legislators. We're going to be handing out our brochures, which include as you'll hear me talk about often. Let's see if I can zoom in there a little bit. This whole section is the NORML Foundation Freedom Card. It is a card that we ask you to cut out of this little paper. Keep it with your ID, your driver's license, whatever. So in case you are ever stopped with your law enforcement, you have this little card to hand them that explains to them that you will be invoking your rights, your First Amendment right, your Fourth Amendment right, your Fifth Amendment right, your Sixth Amendment right, and the little paper sort of explains what those rights are. Keep it with your ID, very important if you're ever stopped by law enforcement. We'll be giving those out. Of course, we'll be soliciting donations from anybody, and we'll probably have t-shirts and stuff like that available. That is going to be November 6th. November 6th, that is going to be at The Bend in North Charleston. I believe the event starts at noon until question mark, I'm not quite sure what. For me, it's a great time now to network with other nonprofits that are also politically active. I am trying to start to convince other nonprofits that they need to support marijuana change as well, because it affects their clients very much. So, people that are trying to help the homeless and get them housing. Guess what? If you have a marijuana conviction on your record, it can affect your ability to get public housing. People are trying to help people get back on their feet, maybe get some education. Guess what? You have a marijuana possession conviction on your record. It can affect your ability to get funding for education. So there's a lot of these other organizations that really need to understand, and I don't think I've really been able to explain it to them well, that they need to be supporting marijuana law reform as strongly and as ardently as we are. So there's my little rant for the end of the meeting here tonight. Let me real quick peek at time. Oh shit, I did. I almost talked for an hour again. I apologize. Shane makes a good point. Depending on where you are from or where you're located in the state, be very careful when you are exercising your constitutionally protected rights with law enforcement, because law enforcement does not always feel that they need to protect your constitutionally protected rights. Real quick side rant, you may every now and again, kind of often actually add the hashtag overturn Terry. That is the Terry versus Ohio Supreme Court case, which I believe was set in 1968. And basically what Terry versus Ohio did was it put officer safety above your civil rights and civil liberties. And really, your civil rights and your constitutionally protected rights should be supreme above all, and should not be secondary. So, yeah, I support overturning Terry, and it's really kind of interesting. You can actually go on to YouTube and listen to the Terry versus Ohio testimony and listen to the oozing of the racism in that testimony, and a lot of all our laws are very racially imbalanced, even found in the Supreme Court. If you want to know more about that, contact me. I'll send you a good YouTube channel that some might just say is a little conspiracy theorist or not. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's my last little rant for the night, I think, is overturn Terry. Let me real quick. Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. Back to what Shane was saying. Do be careful when exercising your rights. There is another website I kind of have been to. It's called fairdui.org. They have basically a printout that you can put in your window, one for depending on what state you're in. I have one in my truck, and that basically said, based on South Carolina state law, I'm not going to open my window. I'm not required to open my window. I will hold up my driver's license and registration and insurance to the window so that you can see it, because my law requires that I present it to you, not hand it to you, but present it to you. And they will, and that site actually cautions you. Do not, be very careful when you use this. There's only a couple people that should be using this particular thing, and one of them is sober people, because drunk people don't follow directions and would probably end up getting themselves screwed in the long run. And two is activists, people like myself who want to stand up for their constitutional rights and push the boundaries. I don't drink and drive. I don't carry cannabis with me in my vehicle, blah, 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 blah. I have no reason to open my window because I don't have anything to say to them. I'm going to exercise my Fifth Amendment right to stay quiet. Yeah, and the sign does say I will follow lawful orders. But anyway, very careful using that kind of stuff because it could get your window smashed and have you drug out by your hair or whatever they grab a hold of, and they could drag you out of your car. And then say, you know, deal with it and take me to court. And generally, if anything does come of it, it's the taxpayer that pays the court finding, you know, that pays it, and law enforcement still never will acknowledge wrongdoing or be found to have done anything wrong. We investigated ourselves and we found we did nothing wrong. Well, yes, as the chain said, be very, very careful if you are going to exercise your rights. But I recommend when we're out at these events, I hand to everybody. I'll tell them, yeah, well, I've had like moms go, oh, well, my kids don't have their driver's license yet. They're only, 15 or something like that. Never too young to know your constitutionally protected rights. You still, even at 15, you have the same rights, to freedom of speech, right to remain silent, right to an attorney if you're accused of a crime, right to be secure in your person and papers, that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's my little rant on that. We will be at Blue Jam November 6th. We'll be sitting there and ready by noon. Cross your fingers for good weather. It is an outdoor event. It was beautiful last time we were there. Actually, might not impress any of you, and it really doesn't. It doesn't impress me because political party. I'm not. I'm an issue voter. But I did get to talk to Kamala Harris that day when I was at Blue Jam about 2 years ago, and now she's the vice president of the United States. So, if nothing else, it's probably my closest brush to a famous person. She actually talked to me about hanging out with some normal folks in DC at a cannabis conference not too long before that meeting. So it was kind of a little cool thing. But no, I didn't do a selfie or anything like that. All right, folks, I apologize. I see it's already 8 o'clock. I've talked your ear off again. I want to thank you very much for joining me for this monthly meeting on what's going on federally and state level. If you have an opportunity, please join us tomorrow night. Hopefully, like I say, we should have at least 2 municipal candidates on talking about hopefully decriminalization at the municipal level, and that should be the next 2 weeks. Otherwise, don't forget, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Don't forget to follow our YouTube channel in case you do happen to miss these meetings. You can catch the recording there. And don't forget, you can always contact us through our website, scnormal.org or normalsc.org. Otherwise, that's all I have for you tonight, folks. I really appreciate you joining me. See you tomorrow night if you're there. Have a